Okay, first of all, well, nobody has ever had a UFO experience unless they've agreed to it anyway. I know they don't believe that, but that is the truth. Now, like I said, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. We have gone through every kind of past life you could possibly imagine. Every one of you have had past lives. I've not found a single person who has not. It doesn't mean just Earth. Earth is one school that you're going to, but it's not the only school. You've been around forever, and you're going to continue to be around forever. Earth is a very young planet isolated over here in this part of the galaxy for a reason. They don't want us contaminating the rest of the universe. They're really afraid of us with our violence, so they're keeping us isolated. But you've been around ever since you were created, having all kinds of adventures before coming to Earth. You've lived on other planets, other dimensions, things you can't even possibly imagine. I have had people going to all of these different places. And you've all done that before deciding to come to Earth. This is just a school. But it's a school where you can't skip a grade, but you can have to repeat a grade if you don't get it right. And you don't get out of Earth school until you can graduate. This means you have to experience absolutely everything. So that's why I want you to understand. I hope that everybody understands reincarnation anyway. I don't want to start at the beginning of that anyway. But you have a body. You are not a body. This is just a suit of clothes, a costume you're wearing right now to play this part in this play. It's all it is a play, a game. It's an illusion. This is what you're wearing right now to play this part. But you've had many other costumes you've worn, other planets, other dimensions. Some of them you wouldn't even think were alive. But you have done it all. Now you've come to Earth. Earth is the most challenging planet in the universe. They don't want to come here. It's very, very difficult to live on Earth. In the Earth school, you learn emotions and limitations. And there are many places in the universe, other planets, where they don't have those kind of lessons. But it's a difficult planet to live on because of that. They said they admire you when you say you want to come to Earth, because it takes a lot of bravery to come here. This is the lowest, densest planet there is. The energy is very, very low, very, very dense. So can you imagine they don't want to come here to live? But you learn a great deal by being here. But you all chose to come. Now, when I take people into the past lives, whenever you leave the life, you go to the spirit side. And I've written books on this. What is it like to die? Where you go on the other side? All the places you go to. You always go through what is called a life review. You look over the life you have just left, and you see all the things you've done, all the things you've said, every experience you've ever had. But you also see them through the eyes of everybody you've been involved with. And when you start looking at it, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I hurt them that bad. I didn't know what I said affected them in that way. You're seeing it from a totally different direction. And there is no God sitting up there on a throne who is going to punish you and judge you. You look at your life and you judge yourself. There's no harsher judge than you yourself. And you're the one who makes the arrangements with the other souls you have harmed and created karma with. Let's go back and do it again, because you never get out of it until you've worked it out. These are important points because I'm going to bring them up as we go along. I hope you understand karma anyway. But you have created this with other people. And you have a discussion with these souls before you're going to come back. You'll say, we didn't do a very good job of it, did we? Let's go back and do it again. This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife, or you be the mother, I'll be the child. You can reverse roles around any way you want because it is just a play. We're just here experiencing this right now. So when you are making these plans, you make your plan when you're going to come back on what you will do, or at least hope to accomplish. It doesn't matter if you don't accomplish everything, at least if you try. You make a plan on what you want to try to accomplish. Now, when you are making those plans, the ETs are also very much involved because they're all experiencing lives going back and forth also. And they will talk to you and say, you know, while you're on Earth this time, we're going to be involved in this project. Would you like to be part of it? And you say, okay, it sounds interesting. I'll volunteer to be part of this project. Now, over there, everything looks simple, looks easy. They'll say, oh, I can do all of that. But then when you come here, it's not that easy because you get caught up in the emotions. Everybody comes in with their own little plan, and everything clashes. There's all the emotions you have to live with. And you don't realize that when you say, I'm going to do this and come back. But another trick to the whole thing is, when you come in, you have your plan, you know what you want to accomplish. All the parts are very clear over there, but when you get here, you don't remember anymore. Because as soon as you come into the body, all memory is erased. So you come in with the blinders on. I have people that I've taken through the birth experience. And they're saying, I got to remember, I got to remember. And then they're being born and they'll say, I don't remember anymore. I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we remembered our plan, if we remembered what we were going to try to accomplish, if we remembered our association with other people, wouldn't that be easier? They said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. So you have to come in and fumble around till you get back to remembering again. That's what's happening right now. Things are changing in the world. We call it the veil is thinning. It's called the awakening. The veil is beginning to lift. We're finally beginning to figure out why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing, because this is a very important time in the world to be here right now. But you all volunteered to be here right now, and that's the important thing. Okay. Now, in order to understand what I'm going to be telling you, you have to go back to the beginning of the world. That's all the way back to explain it. Because when you come to Earth, you live lives after life after life. You have hundreds and hundreds of lives because you have to understand every single situation. You have to be every nationality. You have to be every religion. You have to live on every continent in the world. You see the amount of knowledge you must accumulate? You can't do all of that in one lifetime. This can take hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes to learn all of these things before you can go back and graduate. So you accumulate karma during that time. What goes around comes around. That's a law of the universe. It must be paid back. So if you've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of lives, a lot of us get stuck. We're just making the same mistake again and again and again instead of moving forward. They said, doesn't matter to them how long it takes you to learn a lesson. You have eternity. Do you want to take eternity to learn it? Because every time you come back with karma, you are put together with the same people, same circumstances, only now it's even a little harder until you finally learn the lesson. That's what I mean by the awakening. The veils start lifting. We have gotten trapped in karma. We're going round and around in the wheel of karma instead of progressing. This is very important to the story that I'm going to be telling you. Okay. But in the very, very beginning, and I've lectured on this other times at this conference, we were created by the ETs. So they have been involved with us since the very, very beginning. This is why they have so much interest in us, because they have always taken care of us since the very beginning. In the very beginning, whenever there are councils, there's councils over solar systems, there's councils over galaxies, there's councils over universes. They're all very set plans and rules and regulations that everything is run by. So whenever a planet reaches the point when it can support life, this is very, very important in the history of that planet. And it goes into the council in the history books. The planet is now ready to receive life. It has to be cooled down to the point where life can exist. Now, I have taken people back, and see, I don't lead these people. They just go to these past lives. Some of these people have gone back to when the world was being created. I've had them be part of when the universes were being created. You've all done that. You've all been co-creators. You imagine the power you have and you don't even realize it. You were here. You were able to do those things. It means you can do them again once you understand that. I've had them go back to where the oceans were being created, and they were part of all of that. And I've also had them there when the volcanoes were erupting and life couldn't form on Earth yet because the atmosphere was too full of ammonia. So they had to wait till it cooled down enough that life could form. They said this was all done by what they call the archaic ones, the ancient ones. And this means they've been around forever. They said in the very beginning, the archaic ones did it because that was how they were formed. And as they went out into space and began to travel, their job was to create life on any planet that was suitable to have life. And people always say, well, how does God fit into this picture? This is a way of putting the evolutionist theory and the creationist theory together, because God is very much involved in the picture. They call him the source of everything, and that's where we all began. Every one of us started with the source, including the ETs. They are closer to God, if you want to call him that, than we will ever be, because they've been following his instructions since the beginning, but also they depend on him for their very life. They don't consume food the way we do. They absorb light through their bodies. And we're eventually getting to that point. We're all progressing in that direction. They absorb light through the skin. And I said, well, where does the light come from? It comes from the source. So they are closer to him than we will ever be. And they have been receiving instructions since the beginning of time. You go here, you go there, this is what they do. Many of them never go back to their home planets. Many of them don't even have a home planet to go back to because it's been destroyed. So this is their job, to just go from place to place, checking on these things. Can you imagine how many eons of time this would take as you had to go and keep progressing and checking all of this? Because it would be thousands and thousands of years on each part of all of this. So when the Earth finally cooled down enough to support life, they said go to Earth and introduce life on the cellular stage. And they never know what the life is going to look like. The important thing is to get life started. Start it with a single cell organism, and then it will multiply. To get life of some kind going. They don't care what it forms into as long as it is life and begins to grow. First it'll be plants, then animals. It takes a long time. I'm probably going to have to condense this down some because there's a great deal of information to cover. But they go back from time to time to check on it and see, is this growing? Are they turning into multi-celled organisms? I've had people go back to past lives when they were the seeders, the ones who were doing the planting of these cells. And other ones go back to where they were the recorders, who would check and see how are things going, how are the plants developing, how is everything moving along. I think if you look at these this way, you'll see the ETs are not at all what you think they are. They've been very involved with us since the very beginning. But as you gradually progressed, they said you have no idea how fragile life is, because they would go back sometimes and they would find something, a multi-celled organism had begun, and then they would check on it again and it had fallen apart, and the planet was lifeless again. Then there was a lot of great sadness about it, because they said life is so fragile, it has to be cared for, it has to be nurtured to get it to grow. So this is why they've been so involved with us, because they really care about us and it is their job. But as life went along and things did begin to, I'm going to condense here, they began to have life, and it went into the animal stages. Each stage was taken care of by them and developed by them. Most of the animals were brought from other planets to see what would grow here, what would adjust here. So it's been a very long events of all of the whole things leading up to humans. Then it came to time to introduce humans. A lot of this is in my books, so you can find out about it. But as humans were introduced, they looked at this planet and they said, let's give this beautiful planet a creature with free will and see what he does with it. Believe me, they're not happy. What is he going to do with it if we give him free will? Well, we're supposed to do what we are doing now. But the law of non-interference is another one of the rules. Give it free will, and then stand back and see what they're going to do with it. And then they are not allowed to interfere with the development of a civilization. It's the Star Trek rule, but believe me, it's not fiction, it's very real. You have to let the people do what they're going to do, and you can't interfere. So, as time went on, man began to develop from the animals, and it was a half animal, half human for a long time. Then you're going to have to introduce civilization. No, in all through history, you never heard of any caveman suddenly coming out of his cave and saying, I'm going to plant something and see if it's going to grow. I'm going to learn how to harvest. It's not done that way. Every culture in the world has the legends of the culture bringer. You know, the Indians have their corn woman. There's always the culture bringer who brings some kind of civilization and knowledge. They come and they teach them how to plant. They bring fire. In all of these legends, they always come and show the developing species how to learn how to grow. And in all of these legends, the culture bringer always came from the sky or from across the water in all of the legends. Now, as this began to happen, they would give them the next thing they needed. And I asked them, well, isn't that interference if you're giving them something? They said, no, we give them the next gift at the next time they're supposed to have it in their time in history. What they do with it is up to them. And they said, most of the time they don't use it the way we want them to use it. They aren't doing it the way we wanted them to do it. Most of the time they turn things into weapons, as you well know, which they weren't intended to be. So they said, I said, well, can't you just go back and say, you're not doing it right? They said, that is interference. We give it to them a gift one time. What they do with it is up to them. If we go and do anything else, it's interference. So they've been sitting there shaking their heads all of these years as they watch us develop, wanting us to go in the right direction. So all of this went along for many years, and a lot of times these culture bringers would live among the people. And because they live as long as they want to, ETs don't die until they're ready to die. They have complete control over their body. They live as long as they want to. Then, you see, I lost my thoughts there for a minute. Because they live as long as they want to, they brought the legends of the gods in all of these countries of the world. You've all heard the legends of the different gods. That were the ETs living with them to teach them and progress the civilization. Well, as we began to get too many people in the world, they can no longer come and live among us and tell us what they're supposed to do. So now, when it's time for a new invention, a new advancement to be brought into our world, it's put into the atmosphere. Whoever picks it up and invents it is the one who gets the credit for it. You know, many people all over the world are always working on the same inventions at the same time, when the time is right. They don't care who invents it as long as it's in the timeline that it is supposed to be. So they're still helping us in that way, giving us the next step along the way. Okay. So this is the way it's being done now. And they've been still monitoring us and watching us the whole time, shaking their heads and saying, when are these kids going to get it right? They're really afraid of us because of our violence. They said we'll never be able to join with them and work with these communities, the galactic communities, until we get rid of our violence. But it all goes back to the fact that we came from the animals, and we still have that animal nature. But we're the violent ones, and they're afraid of us. That's why they don't want to have any more involvement with us than they have to. Okay. So I got so much information flooding into my head. Okay, let's take it in order, guys, to get it together. Okay. So as they've been watching us and monitoring us all this time, they didn't like all the wars we were being involved with and all the things we were doing. Well, something happened in the end of the 1940s that really got their attention. This was when we developed the atomic bomb, right at the end of World War II. And they've been watching us, but then when they saw that happen, they said, we better get down there and see what these kids are up to. They're playing around with something they're not supposed to be. We were not supposed to have that information yet. We were not supposed to have that knowledge, that invention. It was got in here before its time. Whenever we were supposed to get the knowledge of atomic power, it was supposed to be used for good. They knew we couldn't handle it. So what do? We develop it as a weapon. It's exactly what they didn't want us to do. Now, the only time they can interfere in the development of Earth would be if we reached the point where we were going to destroy the world. If it got to that point, they would have to step in, because if we destroyed this little planet, you think, what is the importance of this little planet over here? If we were to destroy our world, it would send reverberations throughout the solar system, throughout the galaxies. It would disturb other dimensions. There are other civilizations in other dimensions that we can't see. It would disturb everything and cause chaos. So they said it would not be allowed if we were to get to the point of destroying our world. That's the only time they would have to step in and interfere. So that's the first thing they thought of. Look what they've done. They have developed atomic power when they weren't even supposed to have it yet. They knew the danger of the possibility it could be. So they said, we better get down here and find out what's going on. Now, if you remember, at the late 40s, at the end of the war, was when the UFO flap began. There were isolated incidents before that. During the war, they were the ones they called the Foo Fighters, who were in the war. Those were just observers. But they didn't really get involved until at that time, at the end of the war, and that's when we began seeing the influx of UFO sightings began at that time. This is why. They came down here to figure out what's going on. Well, they knew, look, even after the war, we were all in the Cold War. It was a very dangerous situation. So it was like, okay, what are we going to do? You couldn't stop it. You couldn't take it away. That's interference. They couldn't just come in and tell you to stop all of this. So what they decided to do, I think, is brilliant. They came up with a very fascinating answer. They said they went back to the councils and they said, we're going to have to do something. See, the problem with Earth, we are all caught on that wheel of karma, going round and round and around, making the same mistakes again and again and again. You can't handle something that powerful. We would destroy the world. So they went back and said, what are we going to do? We can't just step in and stop because that is interference. Well, the brilliant solution they came up with, they said, okay, we can't influence from the outside, but we can influence from the inside. This is the plan they came up to what they decided to do. Earth was caught on the wheel, too entrenched in karma. What if we bring in souls that have never been on Earth before? Pure souls, souls that are not contaminated, souls that have never been caught up in the wheel of karma. What if we bring them in and let them work from the inside? They said that way it's not interference, especially if you ask for volunteers. You're not making anything happening. Are you following me? I know it's getting a little involved. That's why I wanted to try to do it step by step. You bring in souls that have never been trapped on the wheel of karma, who have never had it, never been here before. Maybe they could make a difference by influencing people in another way. So what they did, the call went out to the universes. Earth is in trouble. We need volunteers. We need people to come and help Earth. So the call went out all over. This sounds strange, but whenever I get hundreds of people telling me the same story when they're in this deep trance and they have no idea what I have received, it's got to be coming from somewhere. I always say the more information I get, the same story that adds validity to it. So now, when I'm doing the sessions, used to be they would go back to past lives. And that was where we did the therapy. Now I'm finding the only ones that I get past lives from are those who are still involved in karma and working out their karma. Now I'm having it happen time and time again. Instead of going back into past lives, they go back to the source when they were created by God and they've never left God. Or they are going back to lives when they were ETs, if you want to call them that, on spaceships, on other planets and other dimensions. That's what I'm getting now. And the people are just like you. They have no idea about this other part of themselves. They're just like you, and the memories are all there in their mind. And it comes through when I use this method of deep hypnosis. The same story comes out again and again. Now, when I did the Coast to Coast a few months ago, we were on the air all night long, and I was telling these stories. Afterwards, we had over 3,000 emails in just 2 days. People really identified with what I was saying. Well, one of them said, George Nuri wouldn't let you finish. He said I would get to something, and I think he was a little afraid of what it was going to lead to, and he wouldn't let me complete the story. One of them was, people said he wouldn't let you talk about the source. He wouldn't let you talk about God. And maybe they are a little afraid of what we're going to find. But believe me, it's beautiful. So you want me, I can tell you about God. Okay? Because well, I'm not going to just, say anything about the church, but really they are caught in their own thing. They have not really explored what it is all about. But what I have found, I've had many, many people now who go back to the beginning when they were with God. We were all there in the beginning. That's where we all started out, the source. And whenever we left the source, it exploded out. It said, "Go, my children, and learn. Learn everything and bring the information back." That's why there is no good, there is no bad. It's only experiences, lessons. What do you learn from those lessons? Well, they've all described God or the source the same way. First thing, you're going to have to get over thinking he is a man. If anything, he would be a woman. Because the woman is the creative force, if he was going to be one or the other. But he is neither. It's an energy. We tend to personify because that's the way our brains work. It is a tremendous energy. And when they describe it as a huge, bright light. Some of them talk about the great central sun. And some of them say, I am in the sun, but it is not like the sun we know. It's a tremendous, huge, bright light. And when they go there, all they feel is total love. They are together. Everyone is together. And you don't know how that feels. They say, I'm back, I'm home. They always say, I'm home. And the feeling is so tremendous, they don't want to leave because they're all together. And when they were sent out, they felt a separateness. And a lot of us are still looking for that. We want to go back. We always want to go home. We don't understand where home is, but we know it's not here. But when they go back to that, it is such a tremendous feeling. They have love washing over them. I've seen the body shake and convulse because they're experiencing the beauty of it. So when they go to that part, I'll say, well, I know I'm talking to a body laying on the bed. And I say, well, it was so beautiful, and they don't want to leave. I said, why did you leave? They had to if I'm speaking to them now. And they will always say the same thing. I heard the call, and I volunteered to go. And a lot of times they're on the spirit side, I've had them being meetings, and these spirits will be talking to them saying, Earth is in trouble. Will you want to go and help? And they've never been anywhere. Imagine what that would be like. That pure, that uncontaminated, and to come here? When they come into the body, it's like, oh my, what was I thinking about? As Earth it's the densest, heaviest planet there is. And when they come into the body, when they're being born, they'll say, I don't want to be here. It's just so heavy and dense. I like it better when I was over there. So this is what God is. It is a tremendous energy. And it's so full of total love. But some of these people have come, and you're going to find out by the time I get finished with this, many of you are sitting here right now. Because this is what happened when I did it on the air. Everybody was identifying with, I'm going to tell you the signs of how to know if you're one or not. But other ones were on spaceships, UFOs, other planets. They also heard the call. because they go back to this life when they're just living a normal life as an alien body. And then I said, well, what happened? Why did you come? I heard the call. He said, the call went out. Anybody who wants to help Earth, come. Earth is in trouble. And they all decided to come. But when you come, the memories are taken away. So here they are, stuck in the body. So what I've found is 3 waves, I call them, the 3 waves of volunteers. The ones, now many of you are probably the old school, are still stuck on the wheel of karma, but I think when you're interested in these kind of things, maybe your mind is opening up, maybe you are part of the other groups. Because everything is changing now. The first wave, when I wrote my book, Keepers of the Garden, he was the first one I found, and I didn't know what in the world it was. Now I'm finding it again and again and again, and I call them the first-timers. The first wave, I think, are like in their 50s now. You can see, I said the age when it all started. My daughter says she thinks I'm being too rigid on these ages because some of them may overlap. But the first wave had the most difficult time of all. They are like in their 40s and 50s. But I've had some contact me that are in their early 60s, and I think I fall into the same category. So we can't be too rigid, but it started right after the atomic bomb when the first call went out. The first wave, most of them their whole life, they've not wanted to be here. They felt like they didn't belong. They said, I don't want to be here. They don't understand the violence. I want to go back. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I don't know where home is, but it's not here. Many of that first wave have tried to commit suicide because they don't want to be here. They've had a very difficult time. Now, the second wave, I think, are going into 40s and the 30s. The second wave is like channels of energy. They say they're antennas. They are just here as a generator to let energy flow through them, and so that they can send it out to other people. All they have to do is walk through a mall, walk through a crowded store, and their energy affects everybody. Of course, they don't know it's doing that, but that's what they're here for, is to spread the energy. You don't have to do anything. They said they just have to be. So they have a lot more peaceful than the first one did. And I asked them one time, why did the second group have a much easier time than the first group did? They said because the first group were the way showers, the pioneers. Somebody had to blaze the trail. The second group followed after that. And we're probably going to get into some more. The second group, too, usually don't have children because they said having children creates karma. They just want to do their job and get out of here. They don't want to get stuck. Just do this assignment, then we're all going back home where we're supposed to go. Now, the third wave are the new children. These are the ones that are the hope of the world. They are coming in with everything in place. Everybody's DNA is being changed because we are moving into a whole new world, a whole new earth. The DNA is being changed in our bodies so we can adapt to the frequencies, the changes of the frequencies. The new children the DNA is already there. It's already adapted. They are in place. We have to play catch up. Let me say something before I forget it. Okay, when this energy came into the bodies at the first time, you imagine how that energy would be so, well, alien is a good word, even if it came from the source. It would be so different to enter into a human body that the energy is so strong and it doesn't match the energy of the human body. So many times when they first tried the experiment of getting their soul into a human, into the fetus, the energy was too strong. This meant the mother's energy also was not compatible. So many times it would cause the baby to abort or to have miscarriage because the energies wouldn't match. So when that happened, they would try again. It was supposed to be those parents. And this time they said, well, we'll just send part of the energy in, of the soul, so that the fetus can handle it. And then as the child grows older, we'll give a little more of the energy. So if you can understand this, it's as though the whole soul does not enter at one time. So many people have noticed changes in their life from childhood as it goes along. They said something different was happening because some of the energy was being downloaded little by little until the body could handle it. And I've had clients that tell me after we have that, they say, you know, my mother did have several miscarriages before I was born. That was why they had to adjust with the mother's energy as well as the new incoming soul's energy because it was too different. So this is important as I go along with this. But these are the three waves. And it has caused problems because they don't understand why they're here. I think one thing is ironic about the second wave. They're supposed to be interacting with people because their energy influences everybody around them. But a lot of them don't want to be here. They don't like people. They don't like the way it makes them feel, so they isolate themselves away from people. And I said, that's defeating the purpose. How ironic. You're here to help with the people, and yet you close yourself away from them. But my daughter thinks maybe that means those are still influencing by just being here. Their energy maybe is helping in that way. But we have the three waves. Okay. Now, what I've found, I brought that. Well, there's even some more complicated, but I don't want to get into too much of that. But when I was on the air with George Nuri, he said, this explains the baby boomers. It's that age group, the baby boomers, because look at all the babies that were being born at that time. And also look at what happened in the 60s. The people, they didn't want war. They wanted peace. We had the hippies and the peace movement. They were all trying to make changes. They just didn't fit in with the violence that was going on in the world. But part of what I want to bring in here is the connection with the UFOs. But see, people are always thinking they're doing things to them. All they are doing is checking on their own. I told you you agreed anyway, but if you're one of them, they know you're here. They're watching you to make sure you're going to be okay. That's part of the reasons for the implants, that they have to be able to locate you. They got to know where you are because you're one of them. A lot of the abductions, they don't like the word abductions. They like visitations better. A lot of that, you're taking you back to check on things and making sure everything is functioning, especially with the energy as you grow older, being more and more of that energy being downloaded into you. They have to go and make adjustments to make sure the energy is going to be accepted by the body in the correct way. So a lot of this, all the machinery and things that people see on the UFOs is as they are adapting the body and working with the body. And if the body is sick in any way, has any problems, they will do the things on the ship to adjust it and bring it back into harmony.